Welcome back to Outdoor Adventure Training. My name is Mikey Bell, and today we're moving right along with our Mountain Ankles series to make sure your feet and ankles are prepared to handle whatever adventure you take on next. Last week, we laid down the foundation with some baseline testing, assessing your ankle mobility, stability, and strength. If you haven't done those assessments yet, I highly encourage you to go back, watch that video, take the test, download our free PDF, and make sure that you know exactly what you need to focus on going forward. Because this week we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the exercises and techniques that you need to focus on to actually improve your foot and ankle health for the trail. So whatever those 3 tests told you, that's what we're going to work through pillar by pillar: mobility, stability, and strength. First, we're going to focus on earning new range of motion. Then we can learn how to control that new range of motion before we add load to it. And periodization matters a lot here, as usual, because when you jump ahead to strength without having that stable foundation, that's usually where the injuries occur. We're starting with mobility because that's where the research points first. Limited dorsiflexion is one of the most frequently cited risk factors for developing plantar fasciitis. A matched case control study in the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery found restricted dorsiflexion was the single biggest risk factor they measured, and the tighter the ankle, the higher the risk climbed. So when your ankle can't bend properly through all of its ranges of motion, it is forced to compensate somehow. It's going to find that path of least resistance. It's going to collapse, overpronate, and dump all of that load into your plantar fascia, which it's not designed to handle. And it's the same story as we move up the chain. Chronically tight and weak calves put an unnecessary amount of load on the Achilles, which is exactly why in every single one of our training programs in week 1, we start introducing foot and calf mobility routines to start moving the needle in the right direction. But I want to be fully transparent with you. Range of motion is very, very slow to change. The tissue you're remodeling, your tendons and fascia, are very poorly vascularized. They barely have any blood flow. So in a focused mobility session, when you're seeking deeper range of motion, you might touch those positions, but holding on to that range for the long term takes a lot of consistent work over time. So don't panic when your knee to wall test results haven't changed in a couple of weeks. It really will take at least 12 weeks to start seeing those changes on a structural level. Real remodeling that lasts is a multi-month or even multi-year project. So don't look at your foot and ankle health as a program to finish or a box to check. These are things that need to be implemented into your daily practice, into your lifestyle, if you truly want healthy foot and ankle range of motion for the rest of your life. So when we talk about mobility, it's much more than just foam rolling your feet and calves. The real driver is active range of motion, loaded stretches that actually drive you into deeper dorsiflexion under your own control and start asking the ankle for a little bit more each session. An easy place to start is the one you already know, that knee to wall test, practicing that on a regular basis with your toes a few inches off the wall, driving that knee straight forward, heel stays glued to the floor. You can work in and out of that deeper dorsiflexion. From there, we might need to introduce other stimulus and external tools to start buying some deeper range of motion. My favorite way to do this is using bands across the top of your ankle and still driving your knee forward. This really helps the joint glide instead of just stretching out the calf. This can be pretty uncomfortable the first time you do it, but with practice, you will start to crave this stretch. And for stretching out the calves themselves, we can start with a simple against the wall active calf stretch where we're hitting the gastrocnemius when the knee is straight and the soleus when the knee is bent, which are the 2 muscles in your calf complex. Then we can start deepening the stretch by standing on a slant board or a wedge. We can also spend time on some manual mobilization of the big toe, getting that joint to move. Most people have terrible control of their toes, and for good reason. We're wearing shoes most of the time. Those toes don't get to articulate. So using bands or even just your hands to start introducing some range of motion, flexion and extension through those distal phalanges. There's plenty of evidence supporting that it can help you get into deeper ranges of motion, even just temporarily, so then we can do some more meaningful work. In one trial, a plantar fascia specific stretch beat a standard calf stretch for chronic plantar fasciitis at 8 weeks, and 2 years out when they retested, both groups had basically caught up to each other, but the people who continued their stretching practice kept their gains, which tells you the stretching isn't the magic, it's the consistency. Soft tissue mobilization and allowing your fascial layers to slide and glide is another way to enhance your range of motion, starting very simple with rolling your foot on a lacrosse ball or a golf ball or a softball, mixing up the stimulus to keep your body and brain guessing. And to get into deeper layers, we can keep switching up that stimulus. I love using the handle of a kettlebell. It's obviously very dense, very uncomfortable, or even just using a firmer foam roller or a piece of PVC pipe. Also a big fan of using the percussion gun. This can help desensitize stuck tissues to turn down the nervous system so you can get in there with some deeper work. I also am a big fan of using floss bands like voodoo floss, which is where you add intense compression around a joint, work it through its range of motion for 60 to 90 seconds, and then pull this off and let new blood flow to the region. Now for the honest part, mobility and tissue work isn't the ultimate fix. It's not going to resolve your plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis alone. It's just a gateway. It creates a window for us to then do more meaningful, pain-free work through stability and strength training that will actually drive the structural changes. I keep a massive pile of tools under my desk, and I'm constantly switching up the stimulus throughout the workday. So if you're ever on a call with me, there's a good chance I'm doing something with my feet under the desk, walking on my walking pad, doing some calf stretches, rolling out my feet in different ways. And it's that consistent work on a daily basis that really drives the changes in our range of motion. One huge exception I want to mention because it has real evidence behind it, and it was the single biggest lever I pulled to get out of pain with plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis, which is acupuncture, dry needling, or IMS, intramuscular stimulation. Basically, having a professional practitioner stick a small needle in specific trigger point areas to interrupt the nervous system signals to that aggravated tissue. A 2024 meta-analysis pooling a dozen randomized trials found it significantly reduced plantar fasciitis pain and improved foot function, though it took about a month to kick in. I get acupuncture weekly, oftentimes with electric stimulation involved, which really interrupts those signals, and it definitely moved the needle for me, no pun intended. Moving on to stability, and really this is all about control. How well can you articulate the ankle through its range of motion? Can you move your big toe or other individual toes on their own? Can you hold a single leg calf raise with real height and not wobble? These are all facets of stability and something we definitely need to focus on for strong feet and ankles. The good news is that the stability gains come much quicker than the mobility gains because it's mostly a nervous system adaptation, learning new patterns, not necessarily tissue remodeling. And most people that engage in regular ankle stability routines will start to feel and notice a difference in sometimes just a couple of weeks. And we know exactly what to train here because the research is very clear on what makes ankles more prone to sprain and roll in the first place, which is poor balance, slow peroneal reaction time, the muscles on the outside of your lower leg, and weak eversion strength. So again, we can start with that basic test of just balancing on one leg, Don't overlook this. If you need more intensity, there are many different ways to do that. We can stand on a more unstable surface like a Bosu ball. You don't have to go buy an expensive piece of equipment. You can stand on any old foam pad in your garage and start improving your ankle stability. We can start adding in more concentric and eccentric stability work with bands, working on inversion and especially eversion if you're prone to rolling your ankles. Dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. The key is to go slow and controlled with each one. You have to be focused here, really trying to fortify that brain to muscle pathway. But it's not just the ankle we need to stabilize, also the intrinsic muscles of the foot, the things that actually help create a stable arch. So we can perform very simple exercises, sitting on a box or a ball, heel ball squeeze, squeezing a lacrosse ball between your heels and doing a seated calf raise. We can do towel curls with your toes, trying to grab something up off the floor and start strengthening all of those smaller muscles that works on each individual toe. And truthfully, any single leg exercise is going to improve your ankle stability, which is why we're so big on focusing on unilateral exercises, whether it's a lunge or a step up or a single leg RDL, anything where you're balancing on one leg, moving other limbs through ranges of motion, whether you're on a stable or unstable surface, is going to start building stability in the feet and ankles. Once we feel super solid with all of these baseline stability exercises, we can start making it more athletic. Plyometrics are another great way to enhance that stability and that reaction time in a more trail specific way. Just like when you're walking downhill, your feet and ankles need to absorb that load. Single leg hopping and hopping off of small ledges with control, emphasizing that soft, stable landing, will also help fortify that neuromuscular stability pattern. So when you're on the trail, it becomes second nature and you're not having to think about these things. And just in case you're still not bought into stability training, a meta-analysis of balance and proprioception training, including many of the exercises that we've mentioned, found that it reduced ankle sprain rates by about 1/3. So if you've rolled an ankle before and you don't ever want to limp out to the trailhead ever again, this is the most important thing that you can focus on and is truly non-negotiable. Once mobility and stability have been established, we can start adding load and building strength. This is the pillar that fortifies the mobility and stability gains by moving through range of motion against real resistance. And when I say real resistance, your body weight may or may not be enough. So hiking alone probably isn't going to cut it. This needs to be intentional, focused work that really challenges you. And the foundation here is a loaded calf raise. As usual, we're gonna do these unilaterally because that's how you move on the trail, holding a kettlebell or a dumbbell, wearing a backpack, working on these slow, controlled reps. Repetition tempo matters a lot here. We can't rush through this. We need to go slow. And I'm talking 3 seconds on the way up, maybe a 3-second isometric hold before slowly lowering all the way down. We call this style of training HSR, or heavy slow resistance, which is one of the single most effective tools we have against tendonitis and tendinopathy. But it's not just the back of the lower legs we need to strengthen. We also need to get the front side as well, our tibialis anterior. We can do tib raises against the wall, or you can get a piece of equipment called a tib bar and work on strengthening that muscle as well, which can help a lot with shin and ankle resilience. And of course, we can then build into loading these same structures in more functional ways through movements like reverse step-ups, again, under load, going slow. We can even do a deep split squat. If you want the added challenge, lift that front heel on a plate or a wedge to really load that lengthened position. And that is exactly the kind of work that builds tissue resilience. And you might be thinking, well, if my Achilles is really inflamed and irritated and painful, I should probably let it rest and not load it. But actually, the research points to the exact opposite, and it's counterintuitive, but we need to load those tissues. A randomized trial put heavy, slow resistance training head to head with eccentric training for Achilles tendinopathy, and both worked. And the group that did the heavy, slow resistance training reported a higher level of satisfaction at 12 weeks. So we can't look at strengthening the feet and ankles as accessory work, because reduced calf strength itself is a risk factor for Achilles tendon problems. And if you're not training these systems, you're leaving that door wide open. Strong feet and calves truly are the insurance that are going to allow you to crush hikes later in life. So none of these three pillars will fix the problem on their own. We need the mobility, stability, and strength to work together as a system to have healthy, functional, strong, and capable feet and ankles that can really handle any terrain you put them through. Range with no strength isn't gonna hold, and strength with no range is just adding to dysfunction. You truly need all of it. I know this is a lot of information, but don't let it overwhelm you. I've gone through many of these injuries myself, and I know how challenging it can be to rebuild confidence. But just like with any challenge in life, and in particular injuries, you learn new tools and you come back stronger, more resilient, a little bit wiser to make sure that you stay healthy for the long haul. We've consolidated all of these resources onto one landing page on our website, our Mountain Ankles page, which has free downloadable PDFs, including the scorecard from last week, and a new roadmap PDF that covers a lot of what we talked about today. And you'll also find our full Mountain Ankles program, which is an on-demand library of all of our wonderful foot and ankle mobility, stability, and strength routines. Now, I'm sure you have many amazing questions. Make sure to leave them in the comments below. We read every single one of them, and make sure you're subscribed to the Outdoor Adventure Training YouTube channel, because next week we have another amazing video coming out in our Mountain Ankle series covering one of the most commonly asked questions I get, which is, well, what about footwear? So next week we're doing a deep dive into footwear, footbeds, and much more. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep building those strong mountain ankles, and we'll see you on the trail.